Hello everyone, my name is Mathieu. I'm an activist in Paris inside an organization, anti-fascist and anti-racist organization called Marche des Solidarités that was created years ago by undocumented workers organizations. And I'm as well a revolutionary activist, part of an organization called Autonomie de classe, which is in English class autonomy. And thank you very much for your introduction, and I'm really glad to be here. I'm really glad to see such an important event in Netherlands, and I hope in the next 2 days you will have the discussions and that gives you confidence to fight. So we'll be speaking about the situation in France at the crossroads. What is really important to have in mind regarding France, but I think it's not only in France that is happening, it's the question of polarization, which means in France right now you have at the same time one of the most dangerous fascist party, which is called Rassemblement National, which was Front National before, that is really strong and is getting stronger and stronger for the last 20 years. It was created 50 years ago, but for the last 20 years they are getting stronger in elections. And at the same time, there is as well bigger and bigger anti-fascist and anti-racist mobilizations, specifically in the younger generations. And we have proof for the last months that there is the return of an anti-fascist tradition. So at the same time in France you have what we fear the most and what is the answer to everything. And I think it's not particular to France. It exists in specific features in every country. That is why I will not begin by speaking about France, but about what is happening in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, in USA. And how what is happening there, it's feeding our politics in France. And I hope by beginning by talking about what's happening there, I will help you to understand what's happening in France. And of course, that the discussion that will follow will be on what we are and what you are doing here, and for the next months and weeks here to fight fascism and racism. What is really impressive about what's happening in Minneapolis is that we have to remember how we felt when Trump was elected. It was 1 year and 6 months ago, and it was, I think in USA, but everywhere in the world, a feeling of despair, like what we could do. Like the worst was happening. It was the most autocratic leader, with a strong anti-fascist base, with a strong fascist base, with really hard racist politics, and he was announcing the worst for everyone, inside the country and outside the country. We need to remember that because at this time there were really few people, really few organizations that were saying we have to stay hopeful, because there were Black Lives Matter, because there were strong mobilization and resistance when Trump was first elected. So there was like the roots for hope and the roots for mobilization. When he was elected, he was framed as almighty. And he declared immediately war, not only outside the country, but inside the country. When he launched his police, anti-immigration, ICE, it was like it's a police that is probably more wealthy than most of army in the world. It was looked at something that could sweep everything, that couldn't be stopped. And rather quickly, first in Los Angeles, we have seen in mostly immigrant neighborhoods in communities, we've seen resistance. We've seen people who are not taking part in politics beginning to get into action. And once they get into action, they beginning to win. We have seen in Los Angeles ICE that was put away from neighborhoods. We have seen protests. We have seen actors and musicians beginning to speak. We've seen something like the mood was beginning to change. And then in Minneapolis, Trump launched a specific war. Minneapolis was the main place of Black Lives Matter. It's a strong working class area, and Trump and ruling class in USA wanted to make an example. So he launched 300 agents of ICE to crush the city. And few months later, these 3 agents had to leave the city. And that is really important not only for people in Minnesota, it's important for everyone, because it's a sign that even the most despotic leaders can find their plans run up against mass opposition. Even when everyone is saying there is nothing to do. We just have to wait for the next election, we just have to go underground, I don't know. But what our comrades in Minnesota have shown is that everything is possible. I'm sure that if you are here, it means that you are convinced that if we want to change the world, we need to win. We must win. We do not have any choice. But what happened in Minneapolis, it's a good way to remember that not only we must win, but we can win. And actually we will win. And this hope has to be the basis of our politics. The reformists, they love to build on fear. The worst is in front, so the worst is in front of us. So if the worst is in front of us, we have to hide. We have to find specific way to adapt to the fear. But we revolutionary, we build on hope, which means that this hope is not something out of the blue. It's a hope of millions of people taking into action. It's a hope based on years and years of fighting, of experience. And right now, we do not have to find example from fights from 100 years ago. We have in front of us in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, the example that in every situation, we can win at specific condition, and this is the question we will address. How can we make this hope something concrete? Because in Minnesota, what's striking is how it begins in neighborhoods and finished in a general strike against racism and against fascism, and this is how they put ICE away. In France right now, we are 1 year away from really, really important elections, presidential as well as parliamentary elections. This will happen after 10 years of Macron, the current president. And once he was at power, we observe the beginning of illegitimacy of parliamentary democracy and a stronger polarization. Under his power, the ruling class had really a racist policy. We had like the most racist law in decades in France. He had a really authoritarian power, and that paved the way to fascists. The fascists are as well an illustration as well as a consequence of economical crisis. And in France, they had like a party that was built 50 years ago by a coalition of the worst we have in our country. And this coalition, they have together the the sons of Nazis. They have as well really religious people, Catholic, we call them Catholic integrists, strong traditional Catholic. They have as well people who are against republic, they are for monarchy. And they built a party 50 years ago by the analysis that they couldn't win only by street fighting. They could win through elections. And through these elections, they wanted to create people as they were. They wanted to forge fascists through electoral propaganda. That was their strategy 50 years ago, and it's still their strategy now. And this is why we make the analysis in France that right now, Rassemblement National is probably the closest thing as the Nazi party we have in the world. With specific features, because the situation is quite different, like the 30s in Germany. It's France, it's Nazi were there before, so they can't be exactly the same. But they have the same strategy, to gain power through elections and to build a mass movement behind this election propaganda. Right now, this party, the Rassemblement National, they are really strong in polls. They are more like 30% of electoral expectations. They are by far the first. Actually, they don't know yet which one will be their candidate, but both are first. If it's Le Pen, which is the historic family of this party, they're first. If it's the new one, Bardella, they're first. And they are first by far, really far. But that's the only place where they are stronger than us. They are strong in elections, they are strong in polls, but we are by far stronger in streets. We are by far stronger when it's question of organizations. And this is the specificity of the situation and the polarization in France. For example, in the last month in France, we have for Anti-Racism Day, which is around the 21st of March, happening everywhere in the world. This specific year, in most of the countries, was the 28th of March because of Ramadan. In France, we organized on the 14th of March because we wanted to have this mobilization during city elections campaign. We wanted to be active during this campaign because we knew that Rassemblement National wanted to build through these elections the legitimacy for the next election for the next year. And we had protests in 100 cities. We were 10,000 in Paris. For example, in the second city of France, Marseille, 10,000 people took the streets. In Lyon, 14,000 people took the street, and it happened only 1 month after a Nazi took the street because one of them was killed. When they took the street, the Nazi, there were 3,000. All the media talked about it. Even if you do not care, you knew there were a protest, you knew the dates, you knew the place, you knew the time. Everyone was talking about the défilé of the Nazi. And they came from all Europe. Despite that, there were 3,000. We, on the contrary, we were 14,000 in Lyon. But we were in 100 cities in addition of Lyon. So we have the street. We are more than them. That is why we have to be confident. We do not have to show that against racism and fascism we are the majority. We know that we are the majority. The question is what we build in order for this majority to get into action. We know in France that most of the people are not racist, but we have to organize them in order to be anti-racist. We know by far most of the people are not fascists, hopefully. But we have to organize them in order to be anti-fascist. And what's really impressive right now is that we feel that there is a comeback for an anti-fascist tradition in France. And you can feel it by the mobilization I was talking about. But for example, there was as well another protest beginning of May. For decades, there was a tradition for fascists to take the street in Paris the 9th of May. For decades, they took the street with no opposition. The opposition began last year. We tried to block them. We failed. This year, for the first time in 20 years, they couldn't walk. They couldn't walk. We blocked them. We showed them that if we organize, we can block them. And by blocking them, we show to everyone what they really are, which is Nazi. And we feel that this comeback of tradition as well are in the politic of much bigger organization than us. For example, La France Insoumise. For years, La France Insoumise has a politic of not doing anything against racism. They wanted to convince racist people to not be racist anymore. Right now, they are changing that. They are changing their politic on this question. Right now, La France Insoumise, against racism, they built anti-racist mobilization. And that is huge for us. For example, in the city election I was talking about, one of their members was elected. His name is Bali Bagayoko. He's elected in the biggest city except Paris in the region around Paris. Once he was elected, there was the worst racist comments in media and left and fascist. For years, probably, La France Insoumise before would have done nothing except except speaking in media. Maybe a text in media, maybe they wanted to be on TV, that's it. But now they organized a protest against racism and in solidarity with Bali Bagayoko. And that changed everything. Because once you organize, once you take the street, it's different politics that is possible. And we welcome that. And that's why for the next months, we will be on side of people who want to vote for La France Insoumise. We will be with them. We will say, good, vote for Mélenchon. Vote for someone who is against racism. Vote for someone which is in solidarity with Palestine. Vote for someone who is against fascism. But that won't be enough. That won't be enough because La France Insoumise will tell you only to vote for Mélenchon, and that will solve everything. But we will say, that's good, but that's not enough. You need to organize everywhere. But the basis to have this discussion is there, and that is why we are hopeful. Because against fascism, what we need to build is unity of action. For years, the politics in the left of France was just unity, which means against fascism, we need to have one candidate. We need to be together. For doing what? Doesn't matter. We need to be together. But that's not enough. Against fascism, there is only one politic which is efficient, is unity of action. Yes, we need to build wide coalition. We need to build with everyone, but we need to build to block fascists. When we will be close to election, what we will organize is we need to block Rassemblement National in every neighborhood. When they want to go a marketplace, we need to be there. And when I mean we, is all our class. We, the La France Insoumise people who will distribute leaflets, union members, even members of party of the left, such as really reformists. If they want to block, we welcome them to block the fascists. So we need a specific action against fascism, but that is not enough. We need as well an anti-racist strategy. Because for years in France, what was dominating is against fascism, we need social struggle, any social struggle. If we fight for pension, that's good, we will put fascism away. What we have learned is that's not enough. That is not true. Social struggle is not enough. We need social struggle deeply rooted in solidarity against racism. Actually, we live right now in a situation where we won't win anything without solidarity against racism. We won't win against any law, even if it's not a racist law. And for building this strategy against racism, we argue right now that it has to be two pillars. The first is the solidarity with migrants. And we have to organize this solidarity by encouraging undocumented workers to organize themselves, and around this collective to organize unity. And the second pillar has to be struggle against Islamophobia. And with these two pillars, you can fight much wider against racism, because racism is not only a question of Islamophobia or racism or attacks against migrants. It's as well negrophobia, Asiabophobia, and so on and so on. But the ruling class right now has two politics, Islamophobia and attacks on migrants. And if we do not riposte to these specific attacks, we are weak on everything. So we need to build anti-fascist action combined with anti-racism solidarity on two pillars. And that won't be enough. Because we need to have an organization revolutionary, a revolutionary organization as well. Because defining these politics is tough. It's really tough. If the best happen and Mélenchon wins, what I hope, if we do not have revolutionary activists that defend that the job is not done, that we need to keep on fighting in every workplace, every neighborhood, every university, the reformists will stop the fight. We'll say, okay, we win. Now we have power. It's done. Fascism is put away. War is put away. We just have to wait for Mélenchon to do the best. No, we need to have revolutionary organization. We need to have revolutionary fighters that defend a politic of class against racism and against fascism. And we need to do that because we need to argue that there will be no revolution without struggle against racism. There will be no revolution if we do not fight against fascism. We hear a lot that fascism is a counter-revolutionary politic. And sometimes we think that it means if there is no revolution, then there is no fascism. That's not like that. We need to understand counter-revolutionary. If they organize, our possibility to organize are weakened everywhere. If they are strong in a neighborhood, you will have difficulty to organize in this neighborhood any strike. If they are strong in a workplace, you will be weakened in your possibility to organize a strike. That is why every revolutionary organization has to put a priority to the question of racism and to the question of fascism right now. And we need to have in mind what happened in Minneapolis. Again, because in Minneapolis, this is the question of racism and fascism that put confidence in the whole working class. We had No Kings protests, which were the biggest in the history of the country, because the resistance began in the question of solidarity with migrants and fascism. Okay. 2 minutes. Good. This revolutionary organization have to put priority on anti-racism and anti-fascism. I think I hope I made it clear. And it has to be another politics as well. It is the question of state and the ruling class. We need to be against the state at any time. There is no struggle, no situation where you can compromise with the ruling class. It will be always against the state, always against the ruling class. When it's a question of war, when it's a question of solidarity with Palestine, when it's a question of anti-racism, when it's a question of anti-fascism. Democracy won't stop fascism. We can stop fascism. Democracy won't stop war. Working class can stop war. And this has to be the politics that we have to develop in every country. And when you fight here, please have in mind that we fight together. When we fight in Paris, we fight with you. When people fight in Minneapolis, they fight with you as well. We are on the same side, and when you win here, we win in France. When we win in France, you win here. And please be hopeful. And you will see in the next months in France, I'm sure that we will show to everyone that we will win. Thank you very much.